Hello and welcome to the T-Hud podcast. I'm Leland, here with Moby and Marty. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're good.
Pretty good.
All right, so episode 0. Don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Zero idea what we're going to do with this episode.
Well, I mean, I had about half an idea. That's usually about as far as I get.
Well, it's just one giant test, and if any listeners stick with us past episode 0...
Listener, I'm going to set my hopes on listener, so I will always address our audience as listener, because more than one, come on, that's a little ambitious.
Yeah, I guess so, for where we are right now.
Well, I thought maybe we should kind of explain what the fuck T-Hud is.
Well, T-Hud is our abbreviation for the neighborhood, and that's where we grow up, because most people grow up in a neighborhood. But that's where we grew up together in the same neighborhood, and for some reason it's abbreviated to T-Hud, because we're cool like that.
I have a popular saying within T-Hud: we've been friends for 15 years, but brothers for 10.
That works for me.
That's pretty accurate.
I say that all the time.
And if anyone wants to know how it happened, it was actually street hockey. So outside of Canada, you probably have no clue why people would meet playing hockey on the street. But nevertheless, Leland and Marty were friends for a number of years. And myself and my brother, who will never be welcome on the podcast, came by, and we were teenagers and shy, and my mom saw us like cats with our faces pressed up against the bay window upstairs watching Leland and Marty play hockey, and finally my mom said, "Get your butts out there and go play." Leland wanted to kill me for a solid 2 months, but Marty was friendly, and that kept
I really did not like you. I really did not like you.
Knowing how you are now with people you don't like, I realized that, because
You realize the danger you were in.
I was. He's armed with a hockey stick, wooden battle axe, basically, with some thin tape.
Prepubescent rage.
Well, I would say post-pubescent in Leland's case.
It was pretty close to I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in our
You were an early bloomer.
early to or late 20s to early 30s here, so we've been friends for a long time.
But to be honest, we became closest friends when we realized that Moby was old enough to boot for us.
That is true.
That's super true.
I was a late bloomer, however, and that meant bringing a wheelbarrow load of ID to any liquor store to buy for these guys. So I think that's friendship, because the amount of time I had to have rough construction workers staring at me like I was this, elementary school child trying to buy beer. Quite awkward.
I think we're not here to talk about booting for alcohol. I mean,
We're minors. We do not support,
we do not support
drunk minors. No.
No, not at all.
Not officially.
Now that we're of age, we do not support underage drinking.
But we do support pop culture, and that's what we're passionate about.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, as with most podcasts, this is going to be, a work in progress. But we have thought of 3 reoccurring segments that we're going to do. We don't have names for them at this point.
Not good ones, anyway.
But you know what? What was interesting for me when this whole thing kind of put together in the 5 minutes of planning that we did was, we're all interested in all 3 of these main topics, but I think we all, it's safe to say, kind of lean towards one of the 3.
I think so. I think myself, I definitely lean towards the video game topic. I know that was the easiest one to come up with ideas for. Right away, my mind was spinning and whirring and ready to go. I know Leland, obviously, is passionate about the board games.
Yep.
And it was easy for him to come up with topics for that. And Moby, definitely the movies.
That's right. I've got 600 plus DVDs and Blu-rays, and basically I'm an old man in training. You come back to me 40 years from now, if I'm still alive, I will be in a burgundy robe, smoking a bubbly pipe in an oaken library, dusting off old tomes, but they're movies, not books.
You do realize we have Netflix. right? You don't need DVDs.
You know what? Blasphemy. No, in all seriousness, I do have Netflix, but I hate the fact that it can lose its licenses and these movies or TV shows you like drop off the map. And I like instant gratification, and I hate not having the movies at my fingertips.
I think we all like to own our content.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The physical copy of it. And I think that's something we could probably talk about later on in the podcast on another day about that loss that comes with the culture of having digital media.
It's a good idea.
Write that down, Leland.
Noted.
Well, I mean, Leland, why don't you, we've kind of just touched on what our individual passions are, but, why don't you give a little talk about board games and when you got into them?
I like board games. I've only really been in the hobby for, I think, just 2 years now.
You have that many in 2 years?
I really got into it. It's ridiculous. I just love the hobby. I love being in the hobby. I love interacting with people in the hobby. Everyone's cool. Very rarely do you find people who are there just to make a negative experience for other people. I think it's awesome.
It definitely seems like a really positive atmosphere when you see I see you interacting with people involved with the board game culture. It's positive. It seems to include. It wants to include everybody.
I think so.
That seems
definitely
to be something I've noticed. When we do have game nights, it's situated around involving everyone.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that also kind of falls onto the host as well. Sometimes, I mean, there are so many games. You can find a game for anybody. There's just so many different types of games that can draw so many different types of player counts and so many different types of interests as far as themes and I don't know. Even like social interaction. It's a great hobby.
All right, and Moby, your big thing is film.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was into movies way back in high school. I think where it really started is my dad had a friend named Dave, and each Christmas he would buy us the coolest movie that came out that year. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And the first one I remember was, actually the first one was Ace Ventura, which my overly conservative mom gave away and lied about it.
Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel!
Yeah, she wasn't a fan of the old nip and tuck there. So, but it was all uphill from there, which was a good thing. The next year was Jurassic Park.
That's funny. I was just thinking Jurassic Park must have been one of those.
Yeah. So that was Christmas. I think it was Christmas of '94 we got Jurassic Park, and then trying to remember what '95 was. I know Independence Day was 1996's, but anyways. It was just so cool to get these movies, and we had so few at the time. We actually lived on a hobby farm. We had no neighbors or friends.
Mm. You got a brother and a sister, so
yeah,
you don't need friends.
I now know why you have short-term memory, because you somehow remember all of these things. Your brain is sucked to remember.
You don't have any room for retention.
That's meta. That's too meta.
You don't have any room for retention. Oh my goodness.
But
I'm all about meta.
So, when it came to high school and I started having a little more disposable income, movies are what I bought. It was pretty boring out there, and I just really never stopped collecting movies. And with the advent of eBay, where you could get most movies for quite inexpensive from somewhere, I just kept collecting it, going on and on. So, I'm a big movie guy, and I think another thing that's important or relevant for the podcast for people to know, my day job and my passion is marketing. So I look through everything through the lens of marketing. It's kind of unavoidable, and the other guys have been gracious enough to say, you know what, if you bring up marketing stuff, first of all, we'll bring it up sometimes proactively, but, it's okay if you bring that into the podcast. Because I think geek culture, there's so much money in it these days, and I think the marketing of those films and video games and board games is a big part of it.
It's changed dramatically. I mean, just think of something like Comic-Con. Where that's come in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's incredible.
Huge.
I think that's a good topic. I think we're all on board with the marketing thing. Hopefully our listener enjoys it as well.
Well, why don't you talk a little bit about video games there?
Sorry, that was a throwback.
No
I'm into video games. That's my big thing. I've been playing them since I was old enough to hold a controller. So has everyone at this table probably, but I'm still very passionate about the video game culture, where we're going, the current state of video games, and also retro gaming. And that's something I think we're going to be talking about in any video game segments we have, what we were passionate about in the past and what we're looking to in the future.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to be right on board with that too. I was like right there with you, but it's interesting how like my moving into my board game hobby, that's like where my focus is now, and all that video game focus is totally dropped right off.
Yeah, I've noticed you've definitely been really focused on that. It's a completely different thing. It's still gaming, and it really is. A social thing. But it's funny when I think about you playing games, you weren't really into playing social games. It was very much
I was never like an online player or anything. No. So that was always more the solo experience. Ever since the last two like generations of console, where getting in a room with three other guys and throwing up a first-person shooter, you just don't do that anymore.
No.
Yeah. Or we stopped doing it. I mean, we see that all the time.
We stopped with probably Time Splitters.
Time Splitters 2. Yeah. Oh,
so
man.
many years ago now.
I mean, at that point, we were trying to figure out how we could put up cardboard and not see each other's screens.
Yeah, right? That's why I was trying to stop screen looking.
And nowadays, we're just wondering how we can get back on the same screen, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I'm into, and I'm excited to talk about it. I'm really excited for our first dive into it. It'll probably be the next episode, so stay tuned. But I think for today, our main topic is going to be kind of fitting into Moby's realm with film.
Yeah, that's going to be the big part. So I guess that's kind of a little on our the formatting of our show, which is kind of what we wanted to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's really going to get fleshed out, in the second episode. Certainly, we've got 3 on the go here, and the real episode 1 and episode 2 kind of follow along the format that we want. A bit more than this one, but you got to start somewhere, and we felt like, we just introduced you to who we were and what we were passionate about. But we're still going to dive into it a little bit today. So
Yeah.
I think we did discuss as well why we wanted to do a podcast, and that's something that we wanted to expand on. So why do we want to do a podcast? What do we have to say that is worthy of talking into a podcast and putting it on the internet?
Well, nothing. I have nothing that is worth listening to. So I hope you guys can fill in on that part for the listener, that poor devoted listener.
But isn't that like any podcast?
Yeah, totally. Every podcast ever only has one listener.
You know what? At the end of the day, if the listener, finds us to be good ambient noise to put on the background as they Wikipedia lumber or something, hey, we'll take that. Ambient white noise in the background. We'll
I'm hoping we help them sleep.
There we go.
I would love to put someone to sleep. That is my main podcast goal. Yeah,
I want to feed your dreams.
Self-depreciation is a sign of confidence. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. That sounds good.
I must be the most confident man alive.
At the end of the day, we just kind of felt, probably because of whatever ego we have left talking, that we were fairly interesting to listen to.
Honestly, I like the sound of my own voice, and I love to rant about things that make me mad or that make me hard. There's nothing in between.
and going off that, if you happen to hear, sounds like 1960s Batman, splat, punch, wow, that's probably actually happening. That is not effects.
That is not a sound effect, folks.
No, I don't know how to do that. So,
I was thinking about that the other day in the theater when we were having our rather loud discussion about Dunkirk.
Some people were looking over at us.
Wondering who was sitting and listening, and if they were thinking, "Wow, that's some interesting point," or if those guys are very loud and very obnoxious.
Well, we were dropping a bunch of F-bombs.
No, we weren't that bad.
All right. So we were thinking, why this format? It's probably easier right now than video. I'm a very attractive male, but perhaps not everyone wants to look at me for however long these podcasts take while I talk. That can come later with requests. If our listener wants it and my wife allows it.
Well, and I've got a phenomenal face for radio, so I figured that...
Should I pretend I'm single? Just to, attract that,
Yeah, you gotta cater... Well, okay, no, because...
My ex-wife...
You can cater to the married demographic. Moby and I will cater to the eligible bachelor demographic.
Well, okay.
Moby to the slightly older.
It was a stretch for us to think we were going to get a single listener. To get a single female listener,
you're right.
I mean, this
is
Icarus.
If we could find the one listener that fits into 16 different demographics... That's going to be great.
Hey, it's 2017.
It's 2017. You can be whatever you want.
You can identify as every kind of listener type, and we will accept you.
One thing I wanted to talk is just last thing about the formatting is, the segments are going to be pretty distinctly broken up, and I think that's a good thing for our listener just because we're not very focused, obviously. We're going to be talking on a variety of things, but I think a lot of podcasts, they like to find their niche, whereas I think we're just going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
So if you don't like board games, then you can skip that segment.
Listen to it.
Then listen, I will convince you, and you come over and play with me. But then you can skip that segment if you're not into the movie or particular topic of film that we're discussing. Skip it.
You can GTFO. In my opinion.
Whoa, come on. Don't just drive our one listener away. Just be nice.
All video games are beautiful.
I'm sorry. I love you, listener. Even if you don't like movies.
What we're trying to say is you don't have to like everything. And that's okay.
That's right. We don't expect
you to. But we're
you
also
to.
saying you do.
Yeah.
I can see how
it could be confusing for you.
Yeah, we'll say a lot of stuff that's diametrically opposed, but just laugh and awkwardly smile from behind your computer and skip ahead if necessary till you find something that you do like.
So do you guys want to move into the film segment?
Yeah, you know what?
What was our crappy tentative name for it?
I think it was Movie Musings.
Yeah, see.
And
I came up with that.
We should riff on that a little bit.
Why? So. What's wrong with it? I think it's great. It's got the alliteration. Who doesn't like an alliteration?
I don't think it's bad.
Okay.
I just think we have to kind of discuss it. So, Movie Musings, film parts.
Oh, I see. You want to throw some more names out. You don't want to shit on Movie Musing name. You just want to give some other suggestions.
What rhymes or alliterates with cinema?
Cinema
chat.
Enema?
Cinema.
Cinema. Stay tuned for your cinema enema.
I think this is what's called going down the garden path here. I don't want to know where this ends up. You know,
perhaps Movie Musings is a good word.
Yeah, there you go. Now, by comparison, that sounds pretty fucking good.
Here's the point. So we're not just going to be reviewing movies. We're not just going to be talking about certain films. It's really a catch-all for the entire topic. You know, sometimes we're just going to talk about, like today, where a certain franchise is going, kind of on a big picture level. So we can't have something like, new movie reviews, because that's absolutely not what this segment's for.
So the Smurfs franchise.
Where is it going? Where has it come from?
How many more films can Neil Patrick Harris
Just kidding.
do?
Just kidding. Don't click that X in the top right corner. Don't do it. We're just kidding.
iTunes has just deleted us.
Wow.
iTunes just deleted themselves because of that.
If iTunes spent 5 minutes with us, not on the podcast, we would be deleted. So, but before we go into our first topic,
we didn't actually tell them what we're actually talking about.
No, exactly.
Oh, okay, you're saving it.
Well, I mean, I was gonna bring up, but I guess we can save it for later. I was gonna bring up our tentative names for the other two segments.
Oh well, when we get to them, we'll.
Fair enough.
Well, we should. Why not?
Okay.
Build suspense.
Wait for them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And suspense
good idea
for the topic at hand.
Well, we got to dive in here. I think we're going to lose the one listener because they're going to be like...
Don't worry, none of this is making it in past post.
Our first topic is the Terminator franchise. And again, that's on the big picture sort of view. And, I think the franchise is quite controversial right now. I think that really the only two films that people agree with were classics were Terminator 1 and 2. obviously T2 came out in 1991, so that's a long time since we've had buy-in from Terminator fans that, a specific new chapter has been, good. In some people's minds, Terminator 3, Salvation, and Genesis all completely sucked. So, interested in knowing your thoughts. I mean, Leland, what have you thought about the Terminator franchise since T2?
Excuse me. Rise of the Machines was shit. Why would we even talk about it? I mean, it's like, it's really bad. And I guess it served its purpose, though, in taking you from pre-Cybernet to the war, basically, right? I mean, at the end of Rise of the Machines, Cybernet launched the nukes, and they were in What's-His-Face and the other chick were in the bunker.
I see you've done your research.
Well, they're in the bunker, and then boom. Okay, boom.
Connor.
Judgment Day, pushed back because of Dyson's amazing efforts. Mr. Dyson and T2.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Fantastic vacuum cleaner. Fantastic.
And then I liked Salvation. I thought it was cool.
Wait, the vacuum cleaner is named after him?
Well, one thing you have to know about
rein it in.
Marty is a little bit gullible, so you'll have to forgive
please
him.
rein it in a little bit. I'm in the middle of monologuing here.
Okay. Continue. Terminator Salvation.
I liked Salvation. It was cool. The ending that they should have went with was awesome.
Yes.
Right? With the robot wearing Connor's skin. Like, that's cool.
That was cool.
That's cool. But then that wasn't the cinematic release or whatever, right? Like, I don't know. But I thought Salvation was interesting. And then I enjoyed Genesis. But it was like, again, I enjoyed the idea of it because, I like that. I like this now new timeline. Like, I like time travel stuff. I think it's cool. And if it's not convoluted and, plot holy as fuck, then I'm totally on board with it, even if you got to stretch the imagination a little. So I don't know.
Marty, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I've got some thoughts.
Oh boy, here it comes.
T2 is one of my favorite films. It's amazing. You could cry at the end watching Arnold's performance. Perfect.
Thumbs up in lava.
I mean, come on. I mean,
metal.
T3's fun. It's a fun film. It's got some interesting action. That whole scene with the crane.
Like what?
The crane.
Okay. When they're chasing, when they're doing the chase.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. That's cool.
Arnold paid for a whole bunch of that scene. Because
I recall that.
I recall that. One of the cranes, which I think is really cool.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that was a good scene.
Elsewise, the film is not good. The acting and just just everything is just not great. But it's a fun sort of like summary flick, especially when I saw it the first time. I was like 11 or something. T4, Salvation, again, fun. Very bleak, but fun. And the ending was terrible. But again, I think the issue seems that with those two films is they're almost completely separate films. It's like T1 leads into T2. T3 does not really feel like it was meant to be. It just kind of happened. And T4 the same thing. They're completely different. They could be in a completely different universe. They're so far away. Yeah. And Genesis, by far, my least favorite.
Really?
Oh, I cannot stand Genesis.
I remember you not being impressed when we left.
I was very bored. I just did not like any of the actors portraying any of the characters. Maybe I'm just tired of those characters.
Maybe.
I think the over-reliance on nostalgia was just harming it as well. It looked too far to the past and not enough to the future.
Yeah, but then they didn't even like recreate it. They just warped the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Right? And then it was off. It was like tainted from what you remember, that from where you would draw that nostalgia. It
totally.
Was tainted, right?
Yeah. It just didn't seem right. Even when they tried to hit the nostalgia, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, as for action and stuff, it was an enjoyable action flick. But maybe it's time to move on from Arnold Schwarzenegger if you are going to stick with the franchise. And apparently, James Cameron is. He's going to reboot or rebrand the franchise in 2019. What do you think about that, Moby?
Well, I mean, I come from a different perspective with the recent films. Terminator 3 was my least favorite. It was still enjoyable. I didn't buy Kristana Loken as a Terminator. She was hot, but, you know, she didn't come across dangerous in a way that, you know, Robert Patrick as the T-1000 did, you know, where he's on the phone mimicking, you know, John's foster mom's voice, and meanwhile he's got fucking sword arm impaled through a milk thing that is, you know, a milk jug that's leaking and through his stepfather's mouth.
That scene gave me nightmares as a child.
Well, and you know, there's just Robert Patrick was very cold and dangerous, and Kristana Loken, you know, she'd inflate her boobs for a cop, and you know, it came off as not really intimidating to me. Terminator Salvation I liked. I really wish they went for that ending, like you guys were talking about as well. I thought that would have been a very bold ending, but I thought Christian Bale was a good John Connor. And I like that he wasn't already the leader. If you remember, Michael Ironside is in a submarine, and he's the leader for most of it, and I thought that was pretty cool. Where I'm really going to diverge from you guys is Genesis. I quite enjoyed Genesis. I do have a few major problems with it, but I thought it was fun. I thought the idea that I believe, don't quote me, but I believe it was Matt Smith, the actor, played and embodied Skynet.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I liked him. I didn't mind.
Yeah, he was barely in it, though.
He was barely
in it. He got like
in
less than 10 minutes of screen
yes,
time.
He was barely
Who gives a shit then? They could have cast anybody. He didn't.
Okay.
He didn't add anything to that performance.
Genesis was supposed to start a trilogy.
Yes, of course it was.
Not,
sure,
right?
Great, but it doesn't matter. Now you have to look at it in a vacuum. Now you're looking at it as it. Now it has to stand on its own. You can't have a shitty first and second installment and then your third be great and say, "Oh, that trilogy is awesome." No, each of those films need to stand on their own, and Genesis doesn't.
We don't know where Cameron's going to take this.
Cameron wants to do a fucking trilogy too.
Okay, but he may go from Genesis in some respects. He may draw from
okay, so you're saying he might recast Matt Smith?
Well, okay. No, I'm thinking he might do a sequel.
Okay, and then what's your fucking point about Matt Smith being in this? He didn't.
I just thought he was good, and I thought
why he didn't do anything.
He was intimidating.
He didn't fucking do anything.
He was intimidating, and
he wasn't. He was either. Okay, all right, fine. That's your opinion. That's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
I don't see why. No, I'm not. And I love Matt Smith. I'm a Who fan. He was a great doctor. That's all I really have seen him in. So that's all I can compare his performance to. But I don't see why. I don't see what he offered that any other actor could have as well.
We'll move on from that. That was good sparring. That's like when we play tennis. We have excellent volleys.
Yeah, we're awesome at tennis.
As he rolls his eyes. Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor.
Bland.
I liked her.
Definitely not strong enough. And I love her on Game of Thrones. But
why do you like her on Game of Thrones?
I think she fits the role. She brings that level of command and intimidation, but still humanizes it. But as Sarah Connor, I didn't believe it. But maybe that's because of the actresses who have played Sarah Connor in the past. What was the TV show? The Sarah Connor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a high point for the series.
I forgot about that. That was an amazing, one season? It was a shame it got canceled.
Two, I believe.
Two, yeah, you're right. Two, yeah. That could have been going crazy good places.
You know,
and in season 2, they just transported to the future.
You know, that itself could have led to so much potential for the franchise, but I think it's remained completely separate from the films, and probably in a good way. I think the films are already confused enough. They've tried to make franchises out of everyone since number 3. Yeah. And,
well, you want to, sorry to cut you off, but you want to talk about a great female Terminator. Summer Glau was awesome as a Terminator.
Yes, she was good.
Yeah.
So I thought she commanded presence when she was on screen. I thought.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
She definitely.
I guess
it's possible.
I guess it is a different.
Terminator.
Sure, I guess it's a different medium too, and maybe that presence is harder to portray on a big screen or something.
For sure,
I don't know.
My last point on Genesis before we move on to Cameron and what he might bring. I do think they went in the wrong direction with Arnold for Genesis, for sure. Yeah. I think I like the whole idea in T2 that he became a surrogate figure for John, but the whole point the whole sense that you had of Terminator in T2 was that he was still this very lethal and dangerous character, this killer robot who's just being barely held at the edge from not killing anyone due to John asking him, saying, you can't kill anyone, giving him a direct order. But there was that danger with Arnie. And I didn't sense that danger with him in Genesis. He was a clown, for the lack of a better term. He was practicing his smile. He put on this big grin, and they called him Pops. And I think that just took it way too far.
That's kind of the vibe I've gotten from most Arnold performances since he's stepped back into the world.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
He's kind of gone back to his previous roles or similar types of roles, except in a funny, humorous way. Like, I'm too old for this. Look at me.
It's self-parody on screen. That's actually an excellent point.
And once 1 out of 10 films might be funny, but 9 out of 10 is kind of sad. It makes you don't want to watch old broken Arnold, because he's not the type of actor that has a prolonged career. It's not Hugh Jackman in Logan. He's not broken and terrifying. He's broken and you pity him.
You pity him and you laugh at him, and I think that's part.
You don't laugh at him.
Well, because he's laughing at himself.
Yeah, exactly. And for him to be reduced to this self-parody, it's kind of sad because, look, Arnold was this big movie star. He can't pull off a dramatic role like a Hugh Jackman can. He just can't.
Well, I don't know. Kindergarten Cop. Pretty heart-wrenching.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a tumor. It's not. I believe it wasn't a tumor. I believed him when he said that.
No.
He convinced me.
He convinced you. Well... Anyways, but James Cameron. So are there any negatives of James Cameron getting potentially involved? Does anyone think?
I see no negatives of having him step in with the franchise.
Okay, only if he is seated as the director. He is in the director's chair. I don't want to see another Terminator movie with him with his name thrown on it. If he's in the chair directing it, then I'll get excited about something.
But if his hands are all over it.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. He needs it doesn't matter.
Avatar.
Yes, okay. So there's my other point. It's not going to be until 2025 when Avatar 4 or 5 comes out, or whatever the hell it is. We're not going to get another Terminator movie for another 10 years if he's taken. It doesn't matter.
So he's going to have to reboot if we do anything.
Oh yeah, he's not. Yeah, Arnold's going to be dead by then.
We agree on
Apparently, that. Arnold is in this, but he said that about everything.
It's crazy. Yeah. Where is he going to find the time to?
And why?
If a new Cameron Terminator film comes out before...
Is he going to be Grandpop in this?
I don't know. It's crazy. It doesn't... I mean, why the fuck haven't we seen the second Avatar yet? When did the first Avatar come out? 2008?
That's a good point, yeah.
What the hell? They've been talking about...
2009, I think.
They've been talking about these sequels for years. This is stupid. Almost a decade now.
As far as I know, he's been trying to get glasses-free 3D working. Oh, and that's why.
Interesting. I did not know that.
How? He's going to give everybody cyborg implants? Is that what the thing's going to be?
Yeah.
All right, fine. I can get on board with that.
So, finally, a 3D film you like.
Maybe, yeah. But, I don't give a shit about the Avatar.
It permanently makes your vision dark, so...
Oh, okay. Well, then fuck that. No, I'm out. I'll pass up the chance to be half cyborg. I don't care.
What do you guys think about stepping away entirely from the John Connor, Sarah Connor story and sticking with the Terminator universe, but moving somewhere else, either another spot in time or maybe just going past that, into the future and being in the future during the fight without John Connor?
How else? What other movie could they portray except in this post-apocalyptic future that didn't involve the Connors? How could you portray a modern day film without, right? Where would that interaction then with Cyber, Skynet come in?
Yeah,
right. So it would have to be in the war, and I'm fine. I'm cool with that. That's what was so cool about Salvation is you saw, oh, wow, this world's fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's all these really cool Terminators walking around, and you can get your head blown off, turning a corner if you're not careful. So.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think the problem you have going away from John Connor is that you're going to have to create a surrogate character of some sort, an anchor, who's virtually going to replace the John Connor character. You'll have another army lieutenant or leader or something. Because I don't think it's engaging enough to do a 2-hour movie with just having robots fighting people and not having some sort of human heroic story.
There needs to be a hook. Definitely.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the time travel in the previous films that's the hook. I think something that would possibly work is having a film set before the war, but kind of fitting that horror genre again, like the original did, and that the second did to an extent, but definitely delved more into action. That would probably humanize the series again.
Mm-hmm.
But then what do you do without retreading? You have a Terminator chasing around and nuke people now?
That's true.
Right? Like, what do you do?
But what about horror films? I mean, really, when they reboot a horror franchise, it's the same thing.
Yeah, but but you can't. That's not an apples to apple thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's when you do a horror movie, you know everybody in that's going to die except maybe one lucky person. But when you do a Terminator movie, you know the Connors are going to survive. How could they not?
Well, I think what you could do is you could have, maybe a digital lookalike or something like that of Sarah Connor, use old footage. Have a Terminator go back and actually knock her off.
Kill her.
And kill her in the first 5 minutes of the film. You see her in her little 1980s waitress thing serving coffee. Maybe she gets ice cream dumped in her pocket, like in Terminator 1. And then the windows just start blowing out. And someone, a Terminator with a submachine gun just rips her up. Yeah, and you see the world go absolutely to shit, and it takes 3 movies to get out of it. And I think what would be creative out of that is that in the traditional trilogy arc, it's your second film that's the darkest. You introduce the characters get in the worst possible spot. Third movie, everything gets redeemed. I say no. I say you go absolutely dark in the first film. And in a way, kind of like Dunkirk, which we'll discuss in an upcoming podcast, in a way, what happens is the movie itself becomes a hook because it's so dark and you're wondering how are humans going to crawl back. So anyways, that's just a random pitch.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, we could get into fleshing that out because I got some questions. But again, I ask you then why? Okay, Sarah Connor gets killed and then what?
Somebody else.
Judgment Day happens?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then what?
I think you would have to have
robots. You see robots genociding the human race for an hour and a half?
Yeah. And I think you basically get down to a very small group of survivors that somehow pull it out.
Against what? Pull it out against what? They whip their dicks
Skynet.
out and robots run away scared. Like, pull what out? Against who? Against what? Against why?
Virus or something like
Jesus.
That.
That's dumb.
Well, what other way do you have?
Well, then, you know what? I think we've settled on it. The answer is don't fucking do it, James Cameron. Just leave this franchise the way this franchise. What can you do that's new?
Point. Leland brings up a good point. Is anything else in Terminator? Is there anywhere else it can go that's necessary? And I don't think there is. And I'm a Terminator fan. But
I mean, I just want to see Robert Patrick walking around with metal like swords for hands and stabbing people. I don't know. I just.
Well, that's a bigger topic for discussion another time. We're getting so many unnecessary movies, and that's the best way of describing them. Unnecessary sequels, unnecessary prequels.
Oh yeah, it's
becoming epidemic.
That's like a move of the entire film industry.
Maybe stepping away for 10 years isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, totally. Maybe.
I agree.
Yeah, right. But okay, so what was the difference between T2 and T3 though? T2 was like mid-90s, was it not?
Yeah.
And T3 was early 2000s?
Well, when I say step away, I don't mean step back and then lay a pile of dog shit.
Yeah, just...
I don't know. Is it necessary for us to continue on with this
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
Well, I think the final word here, if I can kind of summarize what we're all saying.
All right, fine.
Okay.
Speak for me.
I'll speak for everyone here.
So I can't clearly do it myself.
Fine, speak for yourself.
No, I have nothing.
Oh.
You weren't
being facetious.
Leland has nothing. This is going to be very rare for Leland to have nothing.
Only on episode 0, folks.
Can
you hear Leland have nothing?
I said my piece. Fucking Matt Smith.
Well, you know what? Frankly, they're...
Okay, you don't stop interrupting Mart.
Oh, sorry,
He's summing. We're summarizing. We gotta move on here.
I'm trying to move on.
In summary, Matt Smith was the most important part of the franchise.
He is the key, the linchpin.
As you guys were discussing that, I was thinking, what character was that?
Oh, I shot through the heart and you're too blame.
I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that we love the Terminator franchise, and even we would probably see every Terminator film. Till the end of time.
Yeah, totally.
Even if it's a geriatric Arnold Schwarzenegger fighting geriatric robots in wheelchairs.
Actually,
electric wheels.
That sounds very
they don't have legs. It's just the bottom is a chair. Wow.
Oh, now we're
and they
talking.
got like cool like all-terrain tires, so they can go any. You can't get away from them. They can go anywhere.
No. We got to have hunter-killer jet engines on either side of the wheelchair. So they're like a hunter-killer.
Okay.
They can vector the thrust all around the battlefield.
You know what? Okay, I just had a thought, and I know we're trying to wrap up this segment, but I just had a thought of where the franchise can go now.
Okay.
Instead, so these humanoid Terminators, that's not how things fought. Wars aren't fought on the ground anymore. Skynet would just be a bunch of fucking murder drones.
Not bad.
You could make it like, maybe you could make it like Hitchcockian, like Birds-esque. Like Skynet's got all these drones flying around. I don't know. That sounds stupid too.
You know
but
wait. I
get what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like,
kind of makes it scary.
They gotta push up. I know they're like. I guess in Genesis there was a lot of like cool tech. Obviously, I mean you got time travel. That's futuristic tech. But
you could argue that's just where the films have changed because the original coming out in the 80s, we didn't have drones.
Exactly.
Right? So obviously the robots weren't thinking about that.
Totally.
But now we have drones. So if Judgment Day happens in 2017,
that could be an interesting twist. I mean, Genesis tried to do it with they incorporated the big AI. Skynet was this like Siri type AI, right?
Yeah.
Like that. So that was cool. That was a cool part. I mean, that's innovative, I guess. Within the
So are
franchise.
you saying that Skynet would take over the Amazon drone?
Oh yeah, it would be delivering bombs instead of packages.
Right.
I'd order a board game, and they're like, "Man, that Leland Steele, we're taking him out. He's a prominent figure within his industry. We're gonna blow him up." I would be expecting
human sympathizer.
Human sympathizer. I was just boom.
Jeff Bezos of Amazon would be an excellent villain.
Why?
Because he wants the whole world to be subjugated to Amazon. If you look up the guy, he does. He really wants you as a human being to rely on Amazon.
And I do.
I do.
I don't yet. I'm one of the final holdouts.
Amazon Prime, baby. FTW. I know. You love your eBay. You love eBay.
Yes.
You're eBay all the way. Which is nothing bad. I like eBay too, but I use it for only certain things.
What's ironic is I've started buying things off eBay, and they're simply vendors who then buy it off Amazon and mail me the Amazon straight to my my mailbox. Yeah, that's happened twice now.
Hey, you know what? You're keeping the middleman in business.
There you go.
So
distribution.
I can't be wrong.
Well,
okay.
Anyways, we got it. There's no natural segue. There's no natural segue. Leland, take away.
There's going to be some music. So, music here. Boom. Okay, well, I think the last thing we're going to talk about on the board game segment, which I tentatively titled Crazy for Cardboard. Again, I got some alliterations. I got a thing with alliterations. But I wanted to talk about this new game called Raxxon. Listener, you may know what this is. But now we're not really going to get into any gameplay or anything. We're not going to review the game. But I just wanted to talk about the marketing side of this game because I think it's unique. I haven't seen anything similarly done like this within the hobby. So what it works is it's very thematic. They're like doing like almost like what are those alternate augmented reality games kind of thing, like real world things where you look up clues and that shit, right? So to be able to even get into the game, you have to be invited, which they call recruited. So basically, if you have purchased the game, you have 3 recruits that you can then send to you have 3 other people you can recruit. Basically, they would then get an email, and what you're doing is you're recruiting them to sign up with Raxxon to fight this zombie plague. that they may or may not be responsible for. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and I was very lucky enough to get to be recruited. Shout outs to Bridge City Board Gamers. You can follow them on Twitter at BC Board Gamer. They were nice enough to send me an invite, and I recently got the game and have played it a couple times solo. But I don't know. I was interested to hear Moby's thought on that on the marketing side.
Yeah, on the marketing side, I've thought about this and I don't like it, and I'll tell you why. So it's great that they've targeted this core demographic of, hardcore gamers that are enthusiastic and want to share. That's fine. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Leland, in that this invitation is the only way to get the game. Is that correct? Or can you buy it off a website?
I believe currently, yes, it is the only way. I think I've read talks of, a future rollout to make it widely accessible, but I don't know about that for 100%. But yeah, I think currently you can only purchase this game if you are recruited.
And that is dangerous. That is dangerous because what you're doing is for really no reason except that you think it's an original marketing idea, blocking other potential people from buying your product. And I think there has to have been a back door. So maybe they've got a website, you can get it. I don't mind the idea. Maybe there's a 10 or 20% discount, or you get a small expansion or something if you recruit people. But the idea that they cannot buy the game unless they're recruited, I don't like it. I think it narrows your sales funnel.
Well, yeah, of course.
But I think that's a major problem. We'll see.
Yeah. I agree with those points. I have seen some backlash. A few people like on Twitter, they don't like this. And actually, specifically, Tom Vassell of the Dice Tower, in one of his segments, Board Game Breakfast, just recently this week, put up said his thoughts, and he doesn't like it either. Essentially, paraphrasing, he thought it cultivated a form of like elitism, kind of thing.
Yes.
Like I've got this and you don't, haha, or even like a feeling of obligation to even to like the game, whereas you're like, hey, get this, come on, this is cool, you should get in on this cool thing, kind of thing. Which I agree with. I mean, they're valid points for sure.
Well, you bring up an excellent point there that I didn't consider. In a way, it has echoes of network marketing. Those kind of schemes where, hey, I've given you an invite. I only have 3 of these. And say you're lukewarm about the game. Do you really want to give away those invites? And do you feel bad if your friend doesn't want to buy the game?
Totally.
You burn one of those 3 invites.
Yeah. Well, I look at it as actually being kind of inclusive. Like I felt pretty good about being able to send some of my. I've sent all 3 of my thing. I sent them right away, and I felt pretty cool when these people I'm sending them to were pretty excited to get it. Okay. That was cool. But honestly, this ploy, it fish hook in the cheek and pulled me right out of the water. Because, I saw all these Twitter posting hashtag Raxxon. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then you look into it and you're like, oh, wow, this is cool. This is thematic. This is, this is cool. I want to be part of this. This seems like this really cool, movement kind of thing. And it got me. It totally got me. I instantly bought it. And this is the very, very first time I have ever purchased any of my board games, my 100 plus in my collection, without fully researching it, watching play videos, basically knowing already how to play the video before I purchase it. Sight unseen, I clicked the buy button on this thing. So it worked for me. It got me. And I sent out, it's funny, you only have to purchase the game to be able to send those recruits. You don't have to necessarily have gotten and bought it. So I sent those 3 recruits out, again, without me seeing the game, just people who are interested in it. Obviously, I mean, I don't feel any obligation to try to hype it to them. They know what it is. They know what they're getting into when I offer it to them. It's just hey, hey, buddy, hey, by the way, I got this. You want to get in? Cool.
You're just doing them a service.
Here it is. I'm public service. Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, no, it got me. It worked. And thankfully, I have played 2 or 3 solo games, and I enjoy it. It works great as a solo. I mean, that can be, we can review it some other time when you guys have had a chance to play it if you want. But yeah, it worked on me. So
my point is, I'm not saying it can't work, and it very well may be working, but it's a high risk strategy. Anytime you put up walls, and then purchases.
So there's also a little further backstory. This isn't like out of the blue. Like this game and its theming and what it's set in. This is like, there's been like, so it's set in the world of this other game called Dead of Winter, put up by Plaid Hat Games. Then there was a big standalone expansion for Dead of Winter called The Longest Night or something or whatever. I don't have it, and in that there was a module where you could go and raid the Raxxon facility. And then the designer, I don't know why I don't have the designer's name. Someone made this game. They partnered up with Plaid Hat and set it in the world of Dead of Winter. So there's all that history. So there's all this history. So like, if you are familiar with those games, you hear the word name Raxxon, you know what it's referring to. One, you most likely know the company. You know, like if you're in the hobby, you know Plaid Hat Games. They make great games. You guys have played a couple of them actually.
Like which games?
Spectre Ops.
Okay.
You guys have played that.
That's a good one.
I don't think I played Dead of Winter with you guys.
No.
I don't know. So there's all that. There's that, to back them up. Like they've I feel like they've set the groundwork to be able to do this ploy. And I will say, for a lot of people in the hobby, obviously I don't speak for all of you out there, but theme is important to a lot of gamers, and this drips. The marketing drips with theme. I don't know what the actual game, that's a different story, but this whole thing, because you log into the site, you log like field reports, they call them. It's basically, you're logging gameplays. You can go into the site and get custom scenarios, like tons of playability with this game. So it seems really cool to me. But I hear and think all of the negatives to the site are completely valid. It's just I thought it was interesting to talk about.
As someone with a little bit less experience, a lot less experience with the board gaming culture, I definitely agree with you still about the theme. That always pulls me in whenever we try a new game. If it thematically is interesting, even themed like something I know or is something interesting. Shogun, that whole theme and how it sticks along like that feudal Japanese sort of thing, and it makes sense logistically. It's fun. It's like you feel like by the end of that game you're really having some sort of like feudal war. And
yeah, that's a great game.
And yeah, it's really fun. We should definitely play it later. Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge when the theme is good, when it looks good, and as you're saying, it has an online component and pulling people in. It's great. I do agree with Moby's point, though. Maybe they should have pushed it more as a, let's spread it. You get an expansion.
Yeah, I can see that. It could be something.
Maybe even, it sounds bad, but an elite version of the game or something along those lines. An option to expand. You've gotten a reward. Yeah. Rather than just, this is the only way to get it. But it doesn't sound like it's
doesn't that do the same thing, though?
True.
Right? Like, then you're even more obligated to send out recruitments, right? It's like, I don't know. I don't think, I would not like to see this become a trend within the industry. Sure. Because, really, what other theming could this work as well with? Like, you can't just make any old game and be like, you know what? You can only buy it if you get an invite, right? Like,
yeah, you can't.
It's spreading as a virus. All these recruitments, right? Like that's the whole thing. I don't see how it could work with any other theme.
No,
it would be an even bigger risk for all the reasons that Moby was talking about.
You're not going to get a Cards of Humanity expansion where we have to recruit people to write offensive things or say offensive things.
We randomly hand out cards saying you're a pussy, and based off that, people.
You get a very offensive email and you realize, yes, I can buy this.
We get like 15 of those per day in our junk folders.
That's true. Yeah. I'm not going to buy Viagra. Stop sending me that email.
And I know you're a Gambian prince. I'm just not interested.
I don't know. That was kind of all of my thoughts I had on that.
Yeah, I think I've shared as much light as I can shed on this one as a marketing perspective. Marty, any final thoughts?
No, I think I've gotten it all out there. It sounds like a fun game. I like the idea behind it. I just don't know if it's the right way to approach only being able to get it.
Yeah. I'm sure it will become, widely available or in stores kind of thing. But I don't know. Maybe not.
But we're talking about it.
Here we go. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's putting up pictures.
Our listeners listening about it.
Our listener, yeah. Our hashtag Raxxon listener. Hashtag Raxxon. Get in on that.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Right.
So I think that wraps up episode 0.
Okay.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, that's episode 0. You can reach us at ttp.com. We don't have that website yet, but one day we will. This has been Marty with episode 0 of the T-Hud podcast. Thank you very much.
We'll edit that out. This is Moby.
I've been sitting on that for like half an hour.
I'll just say tally ho.
As soon as you start talking about board games. I was thinking.
Oh, thanks.
Nah, I'm just kidding. That was great.
And I have been Leland. I guess I'll self-promote myself. Is that going to be a thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I have some written reviews up there. You can, if you're interested, like Shogun actually was the latest one I released. Thanks for that time, Mark.
Yep.
You can go to... Oh shit, what's the site? lelandsteelfiction.wordpress.com. Follow me on Twitter at T_HUD_reppin.
That's REPPIN.
That's right, all capitals. In case we don't talk to you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.